Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at Chiron in the 8th house. So what we're going to do is we are going to address the wound itself, followed by some practical tips and advice on how to heal. However, before we do get started, if you would like to know more information all about your Chiron sign along with your Chiron house, as well as your Virgo house within your birth chart and your 6th house respectively, then I have created a Virgo season / archetype ebook. So what I am going to do is I'm going to provide a link to that ebook in the description box below so that you can pick up your copy today. Okay then, so with all those introductions out of the way, Chiron in the 8th house, let's do this. Okay, so what I am coming to notice is that if you have Chiron in the 8th house, there is going to be strongly a sort of wound associated with death in some shape or form. So this could have been where you experienced death from a really young age. There was maybe a family member of yours who died, or maybe there was a loved one who was quite close to the family and they died, but because that person died, it might have resulted in your parents then abandoning you or rejecting you in some way because of the grief, the sorrow that they were feeling, okay? But not only that, you might have actually picked up on their grief and their sorrow and sort of absorbed that yourself. Because the thing about the 8th house, okay, is that it really does look at the undertones. So looking at, well, the undercurrents, the undercurrents of your environment. So for example, if you were to walk into another person's home, and can depend on really the house itself, but you know how you just get a feeling? So you may walk into a certain home if you have Chiron in the 8th house and just feel it all and absorb it all, especially looking at feelings associated with, you know, grief, sorrow. And the reason why I say this is because these things can be seen as being connected with the other side. Because the thing about the 8th house is that you can look at it as lifting the veil. So looking, of course, at, you know, life itself, and there's movement, there's motion, but then it's that question, that mystery of, well, what lies beyond? What happens whenever we die? And whenever a certain loved one of ours dies, of course there's going to be grief and sorrow associated with that. So coming back to death here, as explained, you just might have experienced death from a family member, a friend, possibly even a pet, or one of your friends even, maybe as a child. You know, this could have even been a situation where one of your friends in school committed suicide, okay? Or maybe they were going through a really bad depression, or perhaps their suicide resulted in a really bad depression for you, or resulted in strong fears and anxieties for you. We're just seeing here a theme of a wound being associated with death. However, there can also be another possibility here, is rejection associated with somebody else's psychological state. So what I mean by this is that the 8th house can be seen as the residue, or the itty gritty connected with our family conditioning or the experiences that we were raised up through. So looking at the 4th house as your family upbringing, but then the 8th house is connected with you going into an intimate relationship, and then all this unresolved baggage just comes bubbling to the surface, and you're like, why am I acting like this? Why are you acting like this? And then when you trace it back, it's like, oh my gosh, my mother, my father, they were douchebags, you know, they weren't very nice people in that way to me. At least that's how you perceive it, right? So what I mean by this then is that you could have experienced a certain figure within your life who didn't deal through their crap, you know? They didn't look at their own traumas, or look at their own wounds, and instead what they might have done is they might have just pulled you under with them, you know, or you actually might be that person who has these really intense wounds that you haven't really addressed, or maybe that you're not really aware of, but then whenever you do go to be intimate with someone or try to be intimate with someone, these things come to the surface and you don't quite understand why, but it's still these same things that might even be used against you from a potential intimate partner sometime in your life. And oh my gosh, if they're used against you in some way, this might result in you becoming really very closed and guarded and to yourself, and really quite paranoid over people's intentions. And you may just have experienced a certain rejection with someone overstepping their mark with you, or trying to assert their control over you and being domineering towards you in some shape or form. And seriously, if you have, you know, if this was domestic violence, domestic abuse, if this was manipulation, if this was power struggles, power plays between you and a parental figure or a partner, whatever way this could have played out, if any of this happened, this just can result in you then being really controlling over who you let into your space, who you let into your life, and just wanting to just really keep to yourself. And especially if there is a wound that is like this wound, if you have Chiron in the 8th house, may be buried so deep, you know. This could be a wound associated with such like a traumatic event in your life. It was a real big crisis for you that completely shaped you to your core. And because of how deep it is, because of how intimate that wound is to you, you're like, no, I'm not going back there again. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not letting them in. I'm not letting anybody in. And so this in turn can actually lead to repression, where you repress certain emotions, for example, or you just are fearful about letting out certain emotions because of how maybe another can use that particular emotion against you. You know, this could be a situation where you try to express yourself, like express how you were really feeling. Like, let's say, for example, it was a rageful emotion or it was a jealous emotion. But instead of that person, you know, having an open line of communication about it, or getting into those vulnerabilities, getting into your insecurities and bringing them up and just letting them out, you know, in a raw, authentic way, it was more so seen as, what's wrong with you, right? You are so insecure, you're this, you're that. That's horrible. How dare you feel that emotion, you know? How dare you feel rage? How dare you feel jealousy? And those emotions then become like choked up within you, and then you're like, maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe it is all my fault. Maybe I need to fix this about myself. There's something wrong that I'm feeling jealousy right now. This is all my fault. And so you implode on yourself and you repress those things, and then you don't let them out, and then you don't feel heard. And that can lead to so many psychological disorders and emotional disorders and physical implications and just confusion, really. And even going into an intimate relationship with someone in the future, because maybe you didn't address your jealousy that you felt, or rage that you felt, or greed that you felt whenever you were younger. You know, these certain emotions that were seen as wrong. Because you didn't address those, then you go into an intimate relationship with someone else, and then you experience complications. You experience power plays, conflict, disagreements. Oh, who gets the upper hand over this situation? But all the while, you keep it in. You keep all of it locked in. And you don't you don't bring it out because of fear. Oh, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? They're going to leave me. They're literally going to reject me and not want to be with me or be in a committed partnership with me. And so you maybe think that there's literally something wrong with that connection that you form with someone, but it can stem from these root causes of you repressing your emotions. So what could even happen if you have Chiron in the 8th house is that there may be this fragmented state of mind that you have. You know, it's like your psychology to you is just so messed up. You know, you may have this look towards yourself that you're just messed up in the head, that you're a psycho, you know. I mean, if jealousy was something that was used against you as a weapon, and you believe that experiencing jealousy means that there's something inherently wrong with you, if you go to feel jealousy later on in your life, you then start to process it through your mind, and then what you start to do is you just penetrate your brain. You're just like, I can't feel this jealousy. I'm not allowed to. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Shame, shame, shame. I can't do this. I'm not allowed to feel this way. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I'm just using one example here. This could be whatever emotion, you know? Whatever emotion. But to process that emotion through your own psychological state and just to destroy, like, just to have these self-destructive thoughts about your own emotions and about your intimate parts of you that are so precious that you just don't let out. To do that, of course, can result in neuroses. It can result in suicidal thoughts even. Thinking like, am I worth it? Is it worth living, you know? Should I really be here? What's the point? What's the point? Another thing then to mention with Chiron in the 8th house is connected with suspicion then and secrecy. So maybe you've experienced a certain wound over a really suspicious partner before. You know, maybe you've been in an intimate relationship and that relationship was actually really controlling. And that person was manipulative and controlling towards you, and they wanted to know what you were doing every second of every day, you know, just constant suspicion towards you, making you feel like you had to answer to anything that they wanted. You could have also experienced an intimate relationship where you knew, like, you felt that there were secrets being kept from you. You know, this could be a situation where you were made to feel like you were in the wrong and that your partner should be suspicious towards you, but all the while it was actually your partner that was the one who you should have been suspicious towards, because they might have been going behind your back. They might have had a secret life outside of you. You might have been the other person in the situation. You know, there's something to be said here about secrecy and people lying and deception, and there's also something to be said about sex being used against you. There's something to be said about controlling you psychologically, manipulating you psychologically, being with an intimate partner who would make you out to be this dark, sinister, ugly person when really they were the one in hiding. They were the one who should look at their own crap. And this also leads us on to sexuality that comes under the 8th house within astrology. So if you have Chiron in the 8th house, maybe you've struggled a bit with your sexuality. This could be because of a certain upbringing that you had where maybe sex was like hush hush. You're not allowed to be sexually active, or we cannot dare talk about those types of things amongst the family or within the home or between our friends. They were the ones basically who controlled the dialogue or controlled what could be said, you know, and maybe you just sort of learn from a young age that, okay, I can't talk about sex, I can't talk about, another thing could be politics, I can't talk about the occult, I can't express my opinions on crime, I can't express my opinions on abortion. Just these taboo, like, subjects that certain people in your life maybe place shame on you for ever daring to bring them up. But still, if we're focusing on sexuality here, that not talking about this sexuality could also result in sexual repression. But then I think from that sexual repression, for example, if you go on to engage in any sexual activity, then you might think that that's wrong of you to engage in that sexual activity, you know? I mean, this could be something of like, maybe you were taught that pornography was completely wrong. And I'm not going to get into my own personal thoughts and opinions on it, but maybe that's what you were told. And you were shamed for ever thinking about it or asking about it. But then you may actually go on to look at it and maybe you felt aroused from it, right? You can't really control, it's hard to control that arousal, but when that arousal comes, maybe you then think about that a little bit and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad person. I shouldn't be looking at this. I shouldn't be watching this. What's wrong with me? And again, that's just placing more shame on you, on thinking that there's something wrong with you because you were being turned on by that. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be pornography, you know, this could be any sexual preference you have towards anybody. You know, that feeling, that arousal comes, but you shut it down. You control it. Because you were made to feel like there was something wrong with you for ever feeling it or for ever asking about it in the first place. So following on from that point, right? If you do have a particular wound surrounding your sexuality, well, it makes sense that that just might make it a little bit complex when it comes to intimacy or being intimate with another person or really bonding with them. So, for example, you may find it hard to express your sexual preferences within the bedroom towards your partner who you're intimate with. You might just kind of let them control everything. Let them have the say within the bedroom. And you maybe just are a people pleaser or you go along with it. Or you can be quite frigid and a bit timid, a bit tender, fragile within the bedroom, a bit obscure because you don't really know, like, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I do this? Should I not? So you can just be fighting with yourself over how you let out your own sexuality and how you then embrace and bond with your sexual partner. And this doesn't even necessarily just have to be sexually, right? This could also be intimacy in terms of emotion. So looking at your vulnerabilities. We have discussed emotions already. So the vulnerabilities here being that maybe you want to say to your intimate partner, I feel really insecure right now. I feel really overwhelmed right now. I feel really just consumed by my emotions and it's pulling me down. And instead of saying it, you just control it. So there is a potentiality of you not letting your partner close enough to you emotionally here as well, or letting out your vulnerabilities, being honest about your insecurities and really how you're feeling on the inside. Also, we could look at this in terms of financially as well, because the 8th house, of course, is also associated with shared resources, joint accounts, joint finances in that regard. So maybe money has been used in a way to manipulate you before. You know, this could have been where somebody gave you a false sense of protection with money or shelter in some way and security. But again, that was used as a way to confine you, trap you in. Though still another scenario could have happened where, see, with Chiron in the 7th house, we did discuss that already, there might have been a divorce that occurred, but still with Chiron in the 8th house, divorce can still, I think, come under this umbrella, but it's done so, or could have been done so, in a really messy way. Because if we look at shared finances, maybe your parents divorced when you were younger, and then the finances were quite difficult to address, because, you know, to be honest, I don't know the whole ins and outs of how much money people have to pay whenever they file for a divorce, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot of money. And if you were a child and your parents went through a divorce and then money issues came out of that, then I'm sure that that would have put a strain on your security, on your own well-being, on your own upbringing. And because of that messy divorce settlement over money and joint finances and things, and resources of course, then you may have this perception that you do not want to get involved with somebody to that extent. Okay, so now we have looked at the wound itself. Let's look at some practical tips and advice on how to heal. So right off the bat, following on from the last example that I used, let's address the joint finances. Let's suggest here you healing by gaining your own personal sense of power when it comes to your finances and your resources. So to get yourself into a situation where you have some control over the money that you're making, you have control over your own security, and also if you went through a really difficult time and finances and security were used as a way to control and manipulate and dominate you, if you got out of that situation, Chiron in the 8th house, you have to say to yourself, I'm a survivor. Of course, I don't know exactly the exact thing that happened, but I have a fair idea. And let's face it, there's a lot of really dark, twisted stuff that happens across this planet, which again, I'm not going to get into. But if you were able to find the strength, find the power within yourself to overcome an enslaved or trapped, cornered part, of your life, you have to be able to see how you rose above that and how you transformed through that. And also, you could help other people who have experienced similar situations in their lives. This could be a friend. This could be a friend that is explaining to you a story that doesn't add up, right? If you have Chiron in the 8th house, you might just get to this point in your life through your experience where you become this really investigative person. You know how to probe people. You know how to get information out of people from asking them questions, because you can see the commonalities, you can see the themes and the patterns. You'll hear someone's story and you'll be like, that sounds very familiar. Okay, let's ask some more questions. Let's probe this person a bit more. And the more you probe, the more you investigate, the more information you get, and the more it starts to make sense. And then you can bring that information, that research that you find, to that person, and you can say, what you see from an outsider's perspective. Of course, at the end of the day, if a person is in a certain really, just a really hard, difficult time of their lives, if they're really going through that, it can, it's really up to the person. The person has to accept it. They have to get through it themselves. Everybody's different, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't express what you think. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that this is really about you, Chiron in the 8th house, learning how to acknowledge your personal power, acknowledge the growth that comes with those crisis, traumatic, difficult, complex experiences that you've been through. You have to be able to see the gain found, you know, rather than maybe seeing it as a loss, okay? Because with Scorpio energy, 8th house energy, it's like there's the all in, all out. It's all or nothing. So there's the loss and there's the gain. You can choose to see it as such a loss to your well-being, to who you are, or you can choose to see it as something to be gained, something to be learned, something to be transformed through, to come out at the other end of that a new version of you. So, I mean, if we were to even connect this in with death, of course, giving practical tips and advice, I think, in terms of death, I think is just a really sensitive thing, especially, you know, if you've experienced a person who's committed suicide in their lives, or they've lost their lives to alcoholism or drugs, or, you know, in that way. I just think with this advice would be to speak with someone about it, you know, if you feel that you really should, you know, speak with someone professional about it. Even seek out psychological help, you know, therapist, counselor in some way. I just think when it comes to certain experiences and issues that come with the 8th house, it's just such a tender area of life. Though still, I think another good practical tip here would be to address your triggers, okay? So if we were to look at the emotions that I sort of explained during the wound, if we were to look at those things, for example, let's look at the whole jealousy thing as I explained. If, for example, you know that a certain thing is going to rise up that emotion within you, that is a trigger. So to be aware of those things that trigger you might be a good start to help with the healing process. And in terms of helping other people, okay, so looking at Chiron as this planetary body that deals with helping other people, and by helping other people we can help ourselves. You could even look to other people and ask them how they cope with their triggers, or how they cope with their emotions, you know, what are some things that they do. Of course everybody is different, you have to remember that, of course, that just because a certain coping strategy helps somebody else doesn't mean that it's going to help you. There's still, I really don't think there's any harm in asking, because I just think that with stuff like this, I think it's really good to know that you're not alone, you know? It's good to know that we're not alone in our wounds, in our hurts and pains, in our misery, the things that just cut deep for us. It's really good to know that we're not alone. And so I think that by reaching out and asking people about their own experiences and the things they've been through, you can really gain a lot of perspective from those things, without, of course, taking away from your own personal experience, okay? But you know what? You could even go and work within a certain profession or field that deals with helping people in a more personalized way. You know, it's more professional in that regard. So looking at psychology, looking at therapy, looking at counseling, these types of things. Also looking at just supportive roles, you know, where you support other people or you volunteer with people who have been victims before. But if anything, I think it's about acknowledging that just perhaps if you have been a victim, then to admit that to yourself. to admit, okay, yeah, I've been a victim before. Or yeah, I've been through a really hard time in my life. Yeah, somebody tried to control me. Somebody got into my head. Yeah, it really hurts me that my parent died whenever I was younger and I still hold on to that. Yeah, the abuse that was put upon me by my mother when I was a kid as well, that really hurts me too. And lastly, when it comes to the fears of sex and sexuality, and also fears of intimacy, vulnerability, bonding, all of that stuff that I talked about, okay, maybe just perhaps you could try slowly but surely looking at the things that actually really turn you on. So, starting with yourself to see how exactly you do get aroused, and just letting that, just let that emotion, let that drive just flow through you. And then also with other people, so if we were to bring other people into this, rather than trying so hard to control that urge with the intimate partner, you know, so maybe you are intimate with somebody and there's those fears that are existing. So try slowly, like, assessing how that energy is flowing through your body. You don't necessarily have to initiate anything or do anything, but just even have certain thoughts about being with that person, or see how you feel when you're with that person. I think it's just really good for you to slowly but surely see how you feel when you get closer and closer and closer to somebody else. But don't just plummet forward, but just really feel how the energy is flowing through you. Do you feel aroused? Does it feel right? Is it what you really want? Really paying attention to your body, paying attention to all of the motions that are just going through the body, and also paying attention to the other person and how they really make you feel, and is there that intimate connection? You know, even just by those feelings alone. You know, like I said earlier, entering into a house and just feeling the undercurrents that exist within that house. When it comes to intimacy with another person, pay attention to those undercurrents. Really listen. Let your intuition guide you through that. And let your sexual desires and your urges speak. I just think it's really good for you to learn how to explore your sexuality, Chiron in the 8th house. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video on Chiron in the 8th house. So what we did is we looked at the wound, followed by some practical tips and advice on how to heal. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and of course if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then go right ahead and click that subscribe button. And I will be back with another video very, very soon.